More Adventures of the Great Brain by John D. Fitzgerald, illustrated by Mercer Mayer. Chapter 4, Tom Scoops Papa's Newspaper. Every Tuesday it was Tom's and my job to deliver the weekly edition of Papa's newspaper. The second Tuesday after we'd returned from our fishing and camping trip, we entered the Advocate office after doing our morning chores at home. Papa usually wrote his editorial and set the type for it and for the advertisement during the first 5 days of the week, in addition to any extra printing jobs he had. He also set the type for news items from other Utah newspapers, which he thought might interest his readers, and national news items received by telegraph in the mail edition of the New York World. He waited until Saturday to set the type for the local news items he had collected during the week. The 4-page weekly newspaper was printed on Monday and delivered to subscribers on Tuesday morning. Swin really thought he was something, helping Papa at the Advocate, wearing long pants, a printer's apron, and a green eye shade. The way he lorded it over Tom and me. "It's about time you got here, old man," he said to Tom as we entered the Advocate office with its smell of ink and paper. "Sorry we are late, Grandpa," Tom said, "but Mama made us weed the vegetable garden this morning." Swin's eyes popped open. "What is this Grandpa business?" he asked. "If I'm an old man," Tom said, "you must be my grandfather." Boy, how I wished I could have thought of that snappy comeback, which positively stunned my oldest brother for a moment. Then he got a sly look on his face as he pointed at the 2 neatly piled stacks of the weekly on the counter. "Papa went to the barber shop for a haircut," he said, "but he told me to make sure you little grade school kids did a good job." From the look on Tom's face, I could tell he would rather be called old man than little grade school kid. But he didn't say anything as he grabbed his pile of the weekly and me the other pile. We carried them outside and Tom put his copies in the basket on his bike. It was his job to deliver the Advocate to the homes of all subscribers in Aidenville because he had a bicycle. It was my job to drop off all copies of the newspaper that had yellow name stickers on them at the post office. These were mailed. I left the rest of my copies on the counter at the ZCMI store and on the desk at the Sheepman's Hotel for people to buy for cash. I don't know if Swin calling Tom and me little grade school kids started it, but after supper that night, Tom got what Papa called growing pains. Mama and Aunt Bertha were doing the supper dishes. Swin, the big sissy, had left us to go sit on the Vincent's front porch and hold hands with his girl, Marie. Papa was reading the farm journal. Tom was pacing back and forth in the parlor with his hands behind his back. I guess this made Papa nervous. "What is the matter with you?" he asked as he dropped the magazine into his lap. Tom stopped pacing and looked at Papa. "Swin wants to be a doctor when he grows up, and I want to be a journalist just like you," Tom said. Papa nodded. "That is what you have both always said. Then why don't you let Swin start learning how to be a doctor working with Dr. Leroy, and let me help you at the Advocate?" Tom asked. "SD couldn't possibly be of any help to Dr. Leroy now," Papa said. "It takes years to become an intern. But he can help me at the Advocate." "There isn't anything Swin can do that I can't do better with my great brain," Tom said. "I could learn how to run the Washington press and set type twice as fast as he can." "I'm afraid you aren't old enough," Papa said. "Don't forget that your brother is almost 2 years older than you." "I'm not a kid anymore," Tom said, as if Papa had insulted him. "I know how you feel, son," Papa said gently. "You just have growing pains, but you will get over them." Tom looked as if he'd just lost the ball game. He joined me on the floor where we played checkers until it was bedtime. I knew he didn't have his mind on the game because I beat him 2 times out of 6. As we got undressed for bed that night, I looked closely at Tom. I couldn't see any difference in him. "Do they hurt?" I asked. "Does what hurt?" he asked. "The growing pains," I said. Tom folded his breeches over the back of his chair. "Some kids grow too fast, and that makes their bones and muscles ache," he said. "That is what they call growing pains. But that isn't what Papa meant. He thinks I'm just a kid and too young to help him at the Advocate, but I'll show him some way that I'm not." "You must be sick," I said. You take on any more work and you won't have any time to play." "When you get as old as me, J.D.," he said, shaking his head, "you will understand that there are more important things than just playing." "Boy," I said, "I hope I never get so old. I'd rather work than play, especially during the summer vacation."